Progress podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to chat to you today because you have so many exciting things going on and you've had such an incredible career journey. But just to start off with, you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur, you're an author, but I would love to know where you started from and what you were doing before you kind of moved into the, self-development world.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, it's like how far back do you go, right? How long have I been a bit weird for and creating all these bizarre and wonderful things? Yeah, look, I think I'm going to go from around about when my marriage broke down, was when I was working as a resume writer. I'd become a mother. My marriage broke down all of a sudden. I got some pretty heartbreaking news about some things that had been going on. And it sent me on this kind of journey of having my whole identity kind of pulled out from under me. I'm like, who am I if I'm not his wife? Who am I? And I was running this little business and I had my little kid and I was ready to have my second kid and all of that. And then everything kind of, got this life plan that I had got pulled out from underneath me. And that began a process. I'd already been a little bit into personal development. I'd grown up, my auntie lived with us and she was like a Buddhist and a yoga teacher. So there was always this kind of like spiritual flavor of personal development going on in my house. But then at this point, I kind of just went, well, who even am I? And I think it's the way for a lot of people is like something happens that makes them really look at their life. And that sent me on this journey of really going inwards, and I started to journal and I started to look at all sort of different natural kind of healing therapies and things like that. And throughout that process, I just learned a lot about myself, and I learned that I am not the same all the time and that I don't want the same things all the time. And what came from that was this realization of this thing that I now call soul modes that I ended up putting into a book that has become this Wall Street Journal bestseller and is changing a bunch of lives. And I'm really proud of what I created, but it came out of very deep pain. And it came out of this very deep journey of questioning what is life all about and what am I here for and what do I need in order to feel okay? Because I had a little girl, I needed to be okay. I couldn't just give up on life and fall in a heap. I had to figure out how to be okay. And so I was kind of just unapologetically, radically taking care of myself. And through that, I figured out what it is that I need. And I started to recognize some of the same things in other people because I was running a resume writing business, which meant I was also doing some career coaching. So I was working with mums returning to work mostly. And I could sort of see these patterns playing out for other people. And so I guess I just kind of embarked on this little research project around women and around feminine energy and masculine energy and belief and all these different things. I started reading all these books and just really exploring life. I enrolled in a psychology degree, which I never ended up actually doing because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
You realize you had to do statistics?
Yeah.
That's what gets most people. I'm studying psych at the moment. I was like,
you?
What is this? None of this stuff.
So it was kind of, I went more, I guess, a little bit more of a spiritual path. I started reading a lot of like Eckhart Tolle and, some of these people that really explored, the meaning of life and philosophers and it's been a bit like that ever since. And I'm just really fascinated by life and by people and particularly by motivation, by what motivates us, what drives us and what holds us back. So that's what I write about. That's what I teach about. It's what I talk about. I had a bit of a kind of a business coaching chapter there, but I'm feeling really called now. My books are more about life, about all different areas of life and about how we can understand ourselves so that we can get the results we want in our lives, but not through forcing and pushing and trying to make ourselves do things, but instead kind of appeal to those natural inner motivators that are there when we give them space to breathe and to be heard and to be tapped into. Things can, I talk about doing life like magic. It kind of, that's what happens when we get out, they say get out of our own way, but that's kind of it is what happens when we stop trying to force ourselves to do things and get to know what actually works for us and kind of write the manual to our own selves. Things can start to happen like magic. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I want to delve more into, like soul modes and doing life like magic, like so many fascinating concepts that I guess, your sort of intellectual property that you've come up with there. But I think it's so interesting that your journey kind of started from, I guess, that, I don't want to say rock bottom, but that sort of dark place and realizing this life that you had mapped out might not necessarily be where your future's going. But I wanted to ask you, and I think this kind of ties into the soul modes concept, did you throughout that journey kind of realize that you didn't have to be just one thing, and that it was okay to be multi-passionate and like not box yourself in?
Yeah, like to be a bit all over the place. Yeah, I've had such an interesting relationship with kind of like niching and trying to like pick like what's my thing. And at times I've found it to be so stifling to try and like sum myself up in an elevator pitch, you know? And so I think it's been a bit of a journey of just embracing that I'm multifaceted, I'm multi-layered, we all are, and we can't be summed up in a sentence. I mean, we can try, but I guess it's given me permission to evolve and to let people kind of choose what I'm going to represent to them, right? Some people follow me on social media because I remind them, you know, of what they're capable of, and other people follow me because I remind them of, you know, it's okay to be human, or, you know, I mean different things to different people, as so would you, as we all kind of do. We all get to bring magic and wisdom into each other's lives, but a lot of that happens more naturally than we realize, just through being who we are and sharing our hearts. And so, you know, I've written 2 books now. I'm working on the 3rd one. The 2nd's about to come out any day now, as soon as Australia Post gets me my gosh darn test print. It's just taking forever. But yeah, each one is entirely different. Each one is a different piece of me. It's like having children, right? Like each one comes out and it's like they're all different, and they're all going to be what they're going to be. And I think these creations, whether it's our business or these different projects and different things that we do in our lives, we've sort of got to let them become what they're here to become and let them be bigger than us. And so I think that's probably a big part of what the journey's been for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a like BS thing in the sort of online business and coaching world, especially, that you have to like neatly niche and sum yourself up in like a 150-word Instagram bio, and it's just not how it works. I would love to hear a little bit more about your soul modes framework and how you came up with that and what it sort of looks like, because yeah, like I said, I think it's such a fascinating concept that I haven't heard of before.
Yeah. So I mean, it hasn't been around that long. I only put the book out in 2019. So, and before that, look, when I was going through my breakup and I started seeing a new person, and I went into this relationship going, I am not going to bring my habit of not sharing what I need into this relationship. I'm going to come into this relationship communicating really well what it is that I need in order to feel filled up. So I don't feel like I'm, you know, I don't know, not nourished by this relationship. So I went into it kind of going, okay, this is how I feel today. This is what I need today. And by this point, I'd been through part of this healing journey, and I'd noticed that there were different versions of me at different times. And so I started to give those kind of nicknames. There was like the wild woman version of me, who was like all fired up and wanted to take on the world and was like really creative and was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And then there was this like hibernating bear version of me who just felt a little bit fragile, a little bit soft, just wanted to be kind of left alone, wanted quiet, wanted stillness, felt a little bit teary, wanted to be taken care of. Then there was this superhuman version of me that was like really logical, very, you know, good at problem solving, very practical, quite independent. Then there was this sparkly fairy version of me who was the one who was very like quite feminine, is the one who I would find myself putting lipstick on and having music playing and feeling really playful and wanting to like just sit on the floor and play with my daughter and things like that. So I realized that I was moving through these in order: wild mode, bear mode, super mode, and sparkle mode. And so when I went into this relationship, I would kind of use that to communicate with him. And I would be like, I'm in wild mode, which means like I'm a bit fiery and, you know, I just want to clean out this cupboard, or I just want to kind of get this done. And he would realize that I wasn't angry at him. It's just the energy that I was in. And I found it really, really helpful to be able to communicate that way. And I would talk about it with other people, but I didn't have an explanation for why it was happening. So I started trying to seek that out. And I came across this thing, the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, and how we move through these 4 different phases, and how It's like in week 1 of our cycle, we feel like this, and in week 2 of our cycle, we feel like that. And I went, oh, maybe it's that. But I realized that I was actually cycling through the 4 different modes much more quickly. And I worked out it had nothing to do with my menstrual cycle. And very quickly in this relationship, I got pregnant. So I wasn't having a menstrual cycle. So I knew for sure it had nothing to do with my menstrual cycle. So I just started researching. I'm Googling my butt off here going, what is this? Why is it that I'm moving through these kind of moods? And I was Googling like mood disorders, like trying to work out what is this thing? And I just couldn't find anything. And I started to talk to other people about it because I was career coaching. So I would start to tell people, and a few people had asked me for business coaching because my business was going really well, and people, so I was business coaching to people who wanted to start up their businesses, and I was like, okay, so it feels like you're probably in bear mode, and which means super mode's coming next. And then they'd be messaging me going, oh my God, I'm in super mode. You're right. Like, what is this? Oh my gosh, you need to like write a book about this or something. What is this? So I did. I wrote a book and I told the world about it. And I thought, when I put this book out, someone's going to turn around and go, oh, yeah, no, someone's already written about that. That's already a thing. But 2 years later, they haven't. It seems to be a thing that we haven't realized, or it's been lost, you know, when we're being burned as witches, that wisdom's been lost somewhere along the way. But it does seem to be something that affects not all women, because it seems to be more about feminine core people. So the people who are kind of feel like we're all over the place, up, down, left, right? Like one day we want to do everything, the next day we want to do nothing, and there doesn't seem to be an explanation for it. So I have had some men say to me, I feel this too. I've had lots of, say, gay men say it to me. I've had trans people say it to me. Lots of different people. So when I say women, I'm using kind of, you know, really kind of broad way to describe it. But what I'm actually saying is feminine core people. And it is quite remarkable to understand this about yourself and to realize that, I'm not lazy or stupid. I'm just in bear mode and don't feel like doing anything today. And that's absolutely fine. And the more I give into my bear mode and fill my bear cup, like each mode comes with a cup to fill, I fill that bear cup, and then suddenly super mode comes, and you'll see me writing lists and ticking it off and cleaning my house and sorting my spice cupboard and writing 10 posts in a day, and, you know, and you kind of just ride the wave rather than fighting against it.
Yes, I absolutely love this because I can resonate so much with it. I'm definitely one of those people who is like, yes, this is me. I definitely cycle through all of these phases, and I feel like I do cycle through them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I, like you, used to think, oh, you know, maybe it is a menstrual cycle kind of thing and maybe too much information, but I've been on the pill for a long time, so I don't have that normal cycle, and I still go through these phases all the time. And I was actually recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I feel like, I wonder if you find that people with ADHD especially resonate with this, because you do get those stages where you feel like you can take on the world, you've got all the energy in the world, you've got all the ideas, and then sort of the next minute you crash. But then there are these cycles in between that aren't so extreme. So yeah, I think it's super interesting. And I was curious, like, are there ways that do you kind of just have to ride the wave, or can you tap into these stages when you need them? Or more so, are there sort of things that you can embrace about each stage? Like, you know, say I'm in bear mode, like what's the best thing to do when I'm in bear mode?
Yeah, totally. Look, the best thing you can do is surrender to it, like give into it. Yeah. It's what you're going to it's like trying to swim with a wave or against it. You can try and fight it, and if you can be in bear mode and be like, no, I'm going to tap into my inner super mode, you can try, but you're swimming against a wave. If you can just go, well, I'm in bear mode, so I'm going to give my bear what she's asking for, then that's going to fill. So thinking about it as 4 cups to fill, I think really helps, because if you fill that cup, it will be over more quickly. So for people like you and I who shift really quickly, and probably a lot of your listeners are people who shift very quickly. So I go through all 4 in a day a lot of the time, right?
I go through them in 2 hours sometimes.
Exactly. And I think that the reason for that is because we are people who are very self-aware. We know what we need. We know when we need it. Like, you know when it's time to shut the laptop and move your body, right? You know when it's time to go, I'm taking an afternoon nap today. You know when you're like, you know what, I am going to stay up till midnight and work tonight because that's what I feel like doing. So people who give themselves permission to do what feels good for them to do in the moment, those people tend to shift really quickly. The people who are more like no, it's Monday morning, so I'm going to do my admin. I go to bed at 8:00 because I said I would. And they kind of like have this bit more regimented approach. They tend to move more slowly because, for instance, in super mode, what's going to fill your super cup is to get some things done. But if you're like, no, I'm going to force myself to go to bed at 8 p.m. because that's what this book told me I need to do, you're not filling your super cup, which means your super will last longer, but it won't be as intense. So I think a lot of the people, particularly those with ADHD, my daughter has ADHD, I've read, a lot of books about it, and I don't experience it myself, but I see it in her. And I have clients who have ADHD, and what I see in them is they feel the modes very intensely and they shift through them very quickly. Because a lot of the time, like, with the hyper focus, for instance, you'll hit super mode or wild mode and you'll get so hyper focused on the thing, whether the thing is decluttering your whole house or, color coding your bookshelf, those random things that you're just like, I have to do this now. I'm so hyper focused on it. That'll fill your wild cup or fill your super cup so quickly, right? And then for some people, like their bear mode lasts really long or their sparkle mode lasts really long. So for someone who, for instance, maybe lives alone, doesn't have family close by, is quite isolated, maybe there's not as many opportunities for them to fill their sparkle cup. Like I homeschool 2 kids. I can fill my sparkle cup up in 10 minutes because they're always there. They're with me. I just will play with them, have a cuddle with them, things like that. That's going to fill my sparkle cup. Whereas, when I'm on holidays or I'm away from my kids, my sparkle mode might take a little bit more to fill up. I might do some beauty stuff. I might dance. I might, catch up with a friend or something like that, and that's going to fill it up. So I think looking at it that way helps because you just give into it, which means you get to feel the beauty of that mode really intensely. Like all of them are great when you don't fight it. And when you know what it is. So bear mode, if you don't know what bear mode is and you suddenly feel unmotivated, a bit tired, some of the negative self-talk might get a little bit louder because it's a little bit foggier up in our mind. We can't just distract ourselves. So some of those underlying subconscious beliefs and thoughts kind of come up to the surface a little bit more. So in bear mode, if you don't know what it is, it can feel like this self-doubt spiral, when actually it's just supposed to be a beautiful time for healing, to meditate, to journal, to take a nap, to take a walk, to just take a bath, to be with yourself. But a lot of the hustle culture, like, conditions us out of doing those things because those things are only supposed to be done as a reward once you've got all your work done. Whereas if you're in bear mode, the best thing you can do is shut the laptop, go take a nap, get bear mode over and done with within a couple of hours, and then super mode will kick in. And it's so annoying. Sometimes super mode kicks in at like 10:30 at night.
Yeah. Like, where were you at 10 a.m.?
Right? Like I've spent all afternoon just sleeping, laying around doing nothing when my kids were being looked after, feeling a bit bad about it. And then super mode kicks in and like, or it's like dinner time. I have to make them dinner or something. It's like, oh God, so annoying. But when you know it about yourself, it's fine. Super mode will come around again tomorrow and I'll get some things done then. It just allows you to take the pressure off yourself a bit.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think you're right. Like the inner turmoil comes when you beat yourself up about it or you fight against it and you're like, well, I'm meant to be like really productive and creative right now. But like, if you're not there, you're not there. But it just makes it like you'd be so much better off just leaning into it and, going out for a walk or just like listening to music rather than, trying to fight against it. So I love it. And I think there's a bit of a myth that productivity needs to be like a one size fits all solution. And it's just not how it works at all. So I absolutely love it.
Yeah, like productivity looks different in each mode. But the version of productivity in super mode is the one that we all get congratulated for, right? Oh, look at you. You're getting so many things done. You're so organized. Wow, right?
Because that's the visible one.
Yeah.
People don't see, the other important things like energizing yourself. Like that's, I say that to my clients, like that is productive. Like you
Absolutely.
need that to do your job, but that people don't see that or it can, come across as lazy. So I think we do need to celebrate all of the parts of what it means to be productive and well balanced.
Totally. That's the beautiful thing is when you follow the modes, you can't be anything other than balanced, right? Because about, say about 25% of the time you want to rest and heal and reflect. And about 25% of the time you want to just be organized and take tangible action. And about 25% of the time you just want to be fun and present. And, if you're into manifestation, sparkle mode's beautiful energy for manifestation. We can really feel deep gratitude and joy and high vibration, right? And then about 25% of the time we're in wild mode, which is when we just have no tolerance for anything that's not serving us. So it's when we suddenly I'm ditching that program, or I'm launching a new coaching package, or, oh my God, I'm going to do a podcast. It's that big picture kind of energy. So if you think about it, if you really can just give into it as much as possible, you can't be anything but balanced. You're going to do the tangible work. You're going to do the big picture work. You're going to do the kind of externally connecting with people around you. You're going to do the internal connecting within yourself. So it's a really cool way to do life, to do it with this awareness.
Yes, I need to read this immediately. The second we jump off this call, I'm ordering it.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, I feel like, you seem to be very consistent with showing up online, and you seem to do it in a very magnetic way. I'm going to bet that, that sort of attraction marketing is probably a big part of your business. What mode do you find is best for showing up online and being on lives and reels and that kind of thing? Because that's something that I personally struggle with, getting into the right energy and mindset. And I tend to try and push it, I try and do it at 7 p.m. after I've already had a long day of work. So yeah, do you find there's a mode that's most conducive to that?
I think the best thing we can do to build a social media following of people who see us as a human being who they relate to, but they also kind of admire or look to for wisdom and guidance and things like that, is to show up through all the modes. Let people see all those parts of you. We see those people who just schedule their posts when they're in super mode, and all we see is the super version of them, right? The super structured, super logical, they feel like this magical robot unicorn. That they must always be like that. And deep down, we know that's not actually true, right? So I think if we can show up through all the modes, but there are different types of content that feel good for me to create in each mode. So in wild mode, I love to live stream. I love to just get on a live stream and just open my mouth and see what comes out and just get in the vibes. It takes a lot of trust in yourself to do that. I've been doing it a long time, but I call them my wild mode downloads. I just come in bleh, here we go. And then in sparkle mode, I love to make reels because it's music and it's funny and it's silly. In super mode, I quite like to do things like go and pull snippets from my courses that I've made, pull quotes, turn them into quote cards, get a little bit more technical with what I'm doing. And in bear mode, I just love to write. I don't need to be seen. I just write and I just open my heart and pour it out. So I guess, I can create content at any time in any mode, but it's going to look different and it's going to have a different energy about it. And allowing all of those pieces to come through, I think it really allows your audience to know you, to feel you, and they're going to relate with you, because when you think about the people that are seeing your content, about a quarter of them are in wild mode right now, and about a quarter of them are in bear mode right now. Now, the interesting thing about selling is that if you have a look at your program, so if you sell coaching, your people are going to buy when they're in wild mode. So the best thing you can do is create sales content that appeals to their wild mode. So I see you, I see what you can be, I feel your potential, that kind of energy. If you're selling wall planners, you're only selling to super mode people. No one's buying a wall planner in sparkle mode or bear mode. And in wild mode, they're not interested in a wall planner. In wild mode, they want to take over the world. It's bigger. It's a bigger energy than that. So this is really helpful if you sell something on the internet, because I see a lot of people trying to sell to people's bear modes, right? Aren't you sick of feeling not good enough and all of that? And the bear modes are yes, I am sick of that. But the people in bear mode are also I can't spend money, I'm scared, right? Whereas in wild mode, it's take my money, I don't care, I'm ready to take over the world. So it's really helpful to know this, particularly if someone buys a coaching package with you and then the next day has a bit of a freak out. It's I don't know if I should have done this. They've just hit bear mode. So you can love them through that. You can say, look, let's give it 24 hours. If you're still not sure, I'll refund you, or whatever your personal policy is. But they're probably actually going to hit super in that time, and they're going to go, nah, let's do it. Let's go. Because their confidence is back. So understanding this, if you run an online business, is absolute gold.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, this could be a whole course in and of itself.
Absolutely.
If you don't already have it, like how to build a content strategy around it. Because
Yeah.
it is important to know not only about ourselves, but being able to recognize in other people what modes they're going through as well. Because we tend to forget that other people have their own universes and are just as multifaceted as we are. So it's so helpful in so many different ways. And switching modes a bit, you've written multiple books, which is incredible. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about the process of writing those. Did you self-publish them? Did you work with a traditional publisher, a mix?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a bit about it.
Yeah. Look, I love book writing. I think that's my life's work. Which of course is the thing that I'm most resistant to. But in terms of the how that I did it, the first one fell out of me really easily because I didn't make it a big deal. I wasn't an author yet. The second one was harder because it's like, oh, now you got to back it up, right? You can't be a one-hit wonder. So it's funny how much the more meaning we attach to things, the more resistance we tend to have to them, obviously. My advice to anyone who wants to write a book is get it out of you as fast as you can. Like write 1,000 words a day for a month and get your draft done, because you will grow so much through that process, because it takes you so deep, like with your own work, your elbows deep in your own work, which means as you're doing that, as you're elbows deep in it, you just grow and you just discover more about yourself. Anyway, so write it quickly is what I would say. Now, I did self-publish the first one, but I worked with like a publisher's advocate in America. I really wanted to hit some bestseller lists in America, or at least I wanted to give myself a good shot of doing that. And it's easier to do that if you've got a US publisher label. So what I did was I did self-publish it, but I worked with like this consultant who you pay to work with you, and he's really good at understanding the American market. And so I paid him a bunch of money, and he helped me to get onto the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, which is fantastic. So his label is actually on the book that came out. But yeah, so that was amazing. And then I got contacted by a New York publisher who said, we want to take on the book. We want to get it in bookstores and all of that. COVID has made it very difficult to get into bookstores and all that sort of thing. COVID hit right after the book came out. So, it's been a little bit trickier, but now that first book is with a publisher, but with my second book, I have fully self-published it. And it just on Amazon and all that, and it will come out in the next couple of weeks, and I'll do that again. And the reason why I wanted to do that and do the whole thing myself was I want to help other people to do that, because I know there are so many people walking around with their book inside of them, and you walk around with your book inside of you and not out in the world for long enough, it starts to get heavy. It's like being pregnant, like 40 weeks pregnant. It's like, get this thing out of me. I cannot carry it around anymore. And I see a lot of people doing that with their books. So I think that's part of what I'm here to do, is to help other people birth their books as well. Because it's been enormous for me, like I had a 6-figure business before I've launched my book, but I had a multi-6-figure business pretty quickly after launching my first book, right? Like it did big things in my business. And so I think it can be a really big thing for a lot of people, but they put it off. They're like, when I'm successful, whatever that means, right? Whatever the next thing they're going for, then I'll do my book. And I'm like, get it out now, because it might be the thing that gets you where you're going.
Yeah. And thank you for being so transparent about the process as well.
Yeah,
I think it's so helpful to people to hear, what's involved. And I think, people think, oh, if I want to be an author, I have to do the traditional publishing route.
No.
And there's so much, like self-publishing is so lucrative, and you have so much more control over it. And, you can always self-publish and then go the traditional route later. So yeah, thank you for being open about the process. So what is Sorceress about?
Yeah.
So that's about more the doing life like magic.
Yeah, it's sort of like manifestation vibes. So
amazing.
We go into, because with soul modes, as you know, we can go in any direction with it. We can talk relationships, we can talk selling, we can talk health and fitness and motivation. Like there are so many different angles we can go. So that book is really about like working with energy, working with your beliefs, and, working with bear mode to notice what your limiting beliefs are and moving them out and shifting them around so that you can create the life that you want. So it's for I guess I would say it's for the people that are into manifestation, law of attraction. If that's your vibe, you'll love Sorceress. Yeah.
Yeah. And has that played a big part in your life, like manifesting things? Like have there been any really big things that came to life that because of manifestation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many things. Like it's just that's the thing with, I guess, with my spiritual beliefs and believing, that the universe has my back, to quote Gabby Bernstein, is because I just see evidence of it over and over, but I see evidence of it because I'm looking for evidence of it. I'm not looking for evidence that life is out to get me. I'm looking for evidence that life is looking out for me. And when we do that, when that's what we're constantly seeking, then it's what we constantly see. We'll find evidence of what we believe to be true. So Sorceress is a little bit like that. Where it's, what do you want? Firstly, I open the book with the question, what do you want? Because we grow up not being asked that question. We grow up being asked, oh God, what do you want now? Jesus, I find myself doing it with my kid. I'm like, with both my kids, I'm like, oh God, haven't I given you enough? Right? That's kind of what we get as kids, right? Because we're full of desire as children. We've got this hunger for life, and it can get conditioned out of us. And so this book is a little bit about bringing that back. Like, what do you want? It's okay to have desires. Let's tap into them, because desire is an incredible motivator, and particularly as feminine core people. Accountability, often we're looking for accountability. So we get ourselves a coach because that'll make us accountable. But accountability isn't actually a very strong driver for the feminine, but connection is. So if you have a coach who you deeply connect with and you feel this, really beautiful connection to, that will motivate you. Less so than just, oh, I'm accountable to this person because I paid her money. And desire is a massively strong motivator for the feminine. And so, let's tap into that and let that guide us and be a visionary, see our lives for what it could be rather than for what it is. Appreciate what it is, but also be tapping into that visionary energy, particularly in wild mode. That's when we can see so clearly what's available to us. But when we live in a society that says, sit down, shut up, cross your legs and be pretty, it's difficult to be in that fired up, this is what I want to grab life with both hands. So it's kind of about unlocking and unleashing some of that.
I love that. And the next book, what was the third book?
Yeah, third book's Formidable. So I'm only about a third of the way into writing that one. So it'll probably be mid next year that comes out. But Formidable, the tagline for that one is "The land of plenty lies outside the cage of conditioning." So it's about the good girl programming, the perfectionism programming, the people pleasing, all of that is just programming, conditioning, the way that we've been taught to be, and how this beautiful land of plenty that exists outside of that, when we can be, who we truly are at our essence. And I speak a little bit about what I've learned as a mother and from watching children and from watching how natural those instincts are in them. And then to see as we get older, how we get conditioned. And so it's about keeping ourselves free, keeping ourselves wild, and just, it's a beautiful flow on from Sorceress, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned perfectionism, people pleasing. You kind of touched on imposter syndrome earlier when you were saying about writing the second book, when there's that expectation, it's you're having to live up to it. Are these things that show up a lot in your own life, especially in the early stages of starting a business? And how did you break through that?
Yeah, the beautiful thing when I started my business, I sort of did it by accident because I was just at home. I'd had a corporate job and I was at home with a baby. And so I'm like, I could do some admin work for some people from home. So then I kind of went, well, I'll get myself an ABN, and suddenly I'm a business owner. I didn't become a business owner because I was in this business coaching kind of industry. I kind of just stumbled upon it. So I went into it with no expectations and I didn't have much conditioning around what it meant to have a business or run a business. And so I'm like, I'll make a Facebook page. That makes sense. And I'll do an Instagram. Okay, off we go. Oh, I feel like doing a blog. So I very much just kind of put one foot in front of the other and kept on going. And so I think that was helpful. My naivety was an asset going in. Now, probably some of the imposter syndrome stuff came up when I spent too much time looking at what other people were doing.
Comparison,
yeah. So I know, and so I just know that I have to manage that balance well, to look what other people are doing for inspiration and then look away, not just be all day looking at my social media feed of all these people doing what I want to be doing, and because it can, so recently I was reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, fantastic book. And I noticed that I think I probably hit a bear mode, and I started to go oh God, I think this is Formidable is going to be too much like this, and people are going to think I'm trying to be Glennon Doyle. And so I kind of just went, I'm going to put that book down for a bit and I'm just going to disconnect a little bit, and I'm going to reconnect to my book. So I think it's this balance between connecting with what other people are doing, but staying more anchored in what you're doing, what you want to do, and remembering that if you are really truly here to be a leader, you're going to be doing stuff that people haven't done. And when you're doing something no one's done, it looks like insanity. Like, it looks crazy. You look like a complete rogue, but that's kind of what leaders do. So I think if we can really define for ourselves what leadership actually is, leadership often looks like complete madness. And I think that can be a really fun energy to play with when you just embrace it and you don't make it mean anything, you know?
Yeah, I think when you show up as your whole authentic self, like, it's impossible to copy anyone or for anyone to copy you, because as cliche as it sounds, there is only one you. So if you're showing up as your true self, then you really are in a lane of your own.
Absolutely. There's no one who can do that. You're the one person. It's the one unique thing you've got is your you-ness. So, you know, ride it, play with it, crank it up. Yeah.
And I know that there's probably going to be no sort of typical answer for this, but I was going to ask you, like, what does an average day look like for you? What do you spend a lot of your workday doing, or does it change a lot depending on what mode you're in?
Yeah, it does. That's the thing. Like, you know, I mean, often my modes will get into a groove where I'm going 3 or 4 in a day. So I might be waking up in bear mode every day, and then, you know, spending the late morning in super mode and the afternoon in sparkle, and then hitting wild at night. So when that happens and I'm in that groove, then the days do look quite similar day to day, particularly because I homeschool my kids, so they're always around. So what I tend to do is like, but then it'll shift. Suddenly I'm waking up in super, right? So I don't have a morning routine. I think I'm quite different to a lot of people in that regard, in that I don't have a morning routine. My mornings look different depending which mode I'm in. If I'm in sparkle mode, the first thing I'm going to do is wash my hair and curl it and put makeup on and choose a pretty dress and have music playing while I'm doing it. If I wake up in bear mode, I'm sleeping until the very last minute I possibly can, and then I'm journaling, and then I'm putting on stretchy pants, right? If I wake up in super mode, I'm going to have bing, eyes open at 6 a.m., journal, check my emails, send some messages to my team, blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of the time people try and like lock something in, and then it doesn't feel good anymore. And instead of changing it, they're like, no, I have to stick with this. I must commit, you know? And I think that's when people just start to get like tired and be like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. So basically I go through my day. I mean, I've got things scheduled in, just like this interview. And I could have rocked up to this interview in bear mode or sparkle mode or whatever, and it would have been a different flavor of interview. But yeah, basically I wake up in the morning and ask myself, how do I feel? But I don't ask myself, which mode am I in? Therefore, what should I do? It's like, what do I feel like doing? I feel like washing my hair and curling it. Okay, well, hello, sparkle mode, right? Or if I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed, well, hello, bear mode. It's not like I go, which mode am I in? It's based on what I'm doing, and what I feel like doing is what tells me which mode I'm in.
Yeah, and it might change how you show up and however you show up. Like you said about socials, you know, it might be your bear self, it might be your sparkle self, and it's knowing that whatever state you're showing up in, that's right, and people are going to connect with some element of it.
Absolutely.
So I love that approach. And what is next for you in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, I want to do my next book. I want to get my next book out next year. I have a program called the Soul Modes Mentor Certification. So people come and they learn, they basically learn how to use soul modes in their coaching or mentoring business. So, you know, say if someone's a personal trainer, they might come and learn soul modes and use soul modes to create a training program for their clients, right? Here's your bear mode training, here's your super mode training, that sort of thing, right? So I have that program, and that's getting a big revamp in the new year and I'm kind of splitting it out for someone who's new, like say they're brand new, they don't have a coaching business at all, but they want to. There's going to be a program for them, and then there's going to be one for if someone's already like a practitioner and they just want to add it on. There'll be a program for them. So that's in the new year. I'm going to be really focused on that, because soul modes, it just needs to be everywhere. It needs to be all around the whole wide world. Well, it is, but people just don't know about it. I want people to know about it, and I want it to be being talked about in the fitness community and in the beauty community and in the business community and the Christian community and the spiritual community and, you know, all of these areas, which means like there sort of needs to be different messengers talking about it. So that's my focus going into 2022, is taking it wider than just me and having it be a real movement. So I'm having a lot of fun playing with reels and using reels to portray the modes, and maybe hoping at some point something goes viral and, it gets in front of a whole bunch of people, because I think it's beautiful healing. It's very healing to understand this about yourself and to realize you're not broken. You're not all over the place. It's exactly how you're supposed to be, and it's not something you need to fix about yourself. It's something you can embrace and work with, and I just think that can only be a good thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of about 20 people off the top of my head, I'm like, who need to know this. So, yep, take it worldwide. Everyone needs to know about it. And where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, so I've got a podcast. It's called Genius Unleashed. And I'm between seasons at the moment, but there's some good stuff there about soul modes. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search Carlie Maree and you'll find me.
Cool. We'll pop all those links in the show notes as well. But Carlie, thank you so much for coming on today. Like, it was just an absolute joy to chat to you. I love how you do life, how you do business. Love the soul modes framework. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.